Hello, everybody. This is Kevin Riles. Thank you again for logging on to the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. I'm happy to be with you again. This week's subject, hard money. Is it hard to make money with hard money? We'll discuss what hard money is, what you can do with it. Is it hard to make money with it? And I think you actually can. So join me this week on the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles, hard money.
Support for this program comes from the Digital Broadcasting Network, presenting podcasts and web series from everyday people who have an extraordinary passion to make the world a better place. To view this podcast, visit channel713.com, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, or whichever podcasting service you use. Welcome to the next generation of broadcasting. All right, so hard money. We're going to talk about that today, but I want to start off the show with something a little I don't know if it's motivational or productive. Before we actually get into hard money, we will get into one of the questions I get at the office all the time is, how do I get started in real estate? And if I don't have that much money, or, what are some of the things I can do? And so that's why I want to talk about hard money for those folks that are out there. But I was messing around on the internet and found this list, and I posted it on Facebook. Again, you can find me on Facebook with Kevin Riles. And I've gotten such a response that I kind of want to start off the show with this week. And I will get to hard money, but there is a book called 15 Secrets of Successful People Know About Time Management. And one of the things that honestly I struggle with is time management. And so I kind of wanted to give a little appetizer this week of these 15 points, because I've had people posting their comments on this list. And so this list, and that book is by Kevin, I think the way you say his name is Kuzman, and the 15 surprising things ultra productive people do differently. So the 15 things that ultra productive people do differently. Why is this related to real estate? Well, if you're going to be a real estate investor, commercial investor, you have to be efficient. And so I've been trying to work on some of these things. So for those of you that are listening on Facebook Live or watching on Facebook Live, and then those of you that are watching the video, look, and by the way, parenthetical reference, we went to video this week. So, y'all getting a chance to see me. I have to kind of do a little bit better with my haircut for those of you that are listening. I'm kind of woolly out here. I got my grades showing, but let me list off a couple of these points real quick before we get to hard money. Number one, ultra productive people focus on minutes. There are only 1,440 minutes in every day, and invest every one of them intentionally. That's true. Right. So I tape this typically on Fridays, and it's just a wonderful thing to be able to come in with the Digital Broadcasting Network and channel713.com. I get to come in, I get to talk, I get to do this video and audio podcast, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm done, and Mr. Producer takes it over. Number two, they beat procrastination with time travel. When what they mean by that is your future self can't be trusted. What can you do now to make sure your future self does the right thing? In other words, they kind of concentrate on the, like Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now, they try to stay in the moment. They try to stay in the moment. Number three, they set daily priorities. Number four, they don't use to-do list. They put their to-do list on that calendar. I've learned that as well. I have this scheduled as a recurring meeting with Mr. Producer and Channel 713 every Friday at 1 o'clock is when we tape. And so it's on my calendar. So I don't have it as a to-do. I have it as a calendar. And I'm going to skip around on a couple of them. I'm not going to do all 15. But if you go to my Facebook page, you can find it at Kevin Riles. They make it home for dinner. Now, that's hard for me, especially in real estate. So this may be for folks that work in corporate. They make it home for dinner. They use a notebook. Now I think I talked about on the second podcast, been using the Best Self organizer. And so that has helped me as well. One of the things I also liked on here is number 10. They follow the 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle. 20% of our activities create 80% of our day, or 20% of the investments we make will account for 80% of our wealth. And so what are those activities that if you do, you can be more efficient? And so as I speak to that, and then I'll say the last one of the 15 that I want to just kind of start off the show with is that they don't think about time, they focus on energy. I used to feel so guilty about not doing things at a certain time. right? Everybody gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning and does this and does that. And I'm not a morning person. I'm a late night person. And so long story short, what I've been focusing on is when do I have the energy to do it? My best prime time to do mind level things is from 9 a.m. to say 11 a.m. So 9 to 11 is kind of when my mind is working the best. And so for showings and things of that nature, 1 o'clock on after is. So when I leave here today, for instance, I'm headed to Galveston, Texas to show. So, those are things that make a huge difference as it pertains to doing things when you have the energy to do them than worrying about necessarily the time. And so if you're a late night person and your mind works the best at late night, then do things late night. If you're researching property from a real estate standpoint and you work better at night when things are quiet, do it then. If you're an early morning person, do it then. Do it when your energy, your mind energy, your body energy is the best. So just wanted to kind of start off this week with a little bit of appetizer on motivational. Remember, this is the real estate of life. And so I've had some feedback that some people would like a little bit of motivation and a little bit of real estate all in the same podcast. So I'm trying something. So over the next couple of weeks, you might see me kind of start off or end the show with just some tidbits about life and things of that nature. I'm a motivational speaker as well. So some of you know that I just want to do that all the time and talk about, how we can be happy and how we can be better. And so I'm excited to bring that to you on the real estate of life. Because remember, we talk about real estate and we talk about life. So with that being said, hard money. So what is hard money? And I want to make sure that people understand that investing in real estate, you don't have to be a millionaire to start off, right? You don't have to be a millionaire to start off investing in real estate. You can be someone that has, very limited means, but if you have a lot of hustle and you have the information, trust me, you can get started in real estate. And so one of the questions I get all the time is, hey, you know what? I don't have 20% to put down on an investment property, a single family investment, but I really am interested in starting in real estate. How do I get started? And so one of the things that I'll tell, and this is one of the ways to do that, one of the things I'll tell people is you can start by finding deals. If you know how to find real estate deals, you will make money or begin to make money in real estate. And so what do I mean by finding deals? If you become an area expert or a property type expert, if you become an apartment complex expert or a single family on the south side of town expert or a certain type of industrial product, whatever the case may be, knowing a neighborhood, knowing a zip code, knowing what the average prices in that neighborhood are, knowing what the average sales comps are doing in that particular neighborhood, knowing what the average rents are. If you do all of those things, then that is the beginning of the process. Rome was not built in a day, nor is a multi-million-dollar real estate investor. So people say, okay, Kevin, I really know a certain side of town. I really know this particular subdivision. I really know this particular zip code. How do I use that information to start investing? Well, there are a couple of ways. One of them is to find deals for others that do have the money, and we call that wholesaling. And wholesaling, you find a property in which someone is willing to sell it for, say, $50,000, but the after repair value, if it's in bad shape, is worth $125,000. And so you get that property under contract for $50,000. You go to an investor and say, hey, I'll sell you this particular deal, not the property. I'll sell you the deal, and my assignment fee is $10,000 or $20,000. So they're getting the property for $60,000 or $70,000 and still have enough equity in it to be able to either rent it out or sell it. And so that's called wholesaling. But the other way is, to me, just as important, and this is where you truly start to kind of build your cash to be able to do long-term deals, is being able to purchase that same deal. So I'm going to use that same example throughout this particular podcast. And in particular, what we will do is, if you find the deals, let's say that's worth, I'm going to use smaller numbers, $50,000, right? $50,000, you are in a situation where you're able to find a deal that's $50,000. After repair value, and I'll explain what ARV means here in a second, is $100,000, right? And so you find this deal, you actually want to do the deal. You don't want to sell the deal to anyone. You actually want to buy this property, renovate it to a rentable standard or a living standard, and either sell it or rent it out. And so with that being said, what you can do is you can use hard money. This is where hard money is. And what hard money is, it's a private funding. It's private funding. In other words, it is not traditional bank financing. It is money that investors, possibly stock investors, private investors that say, hey, I want a better return on my money. In other words, they don't want the 2% that their savings account is paying or the 6% that their stocks are paying. And so they go to what I would call aggregators, folks that are lending money, and say, hey, you can get 8% return on your money if you lend it to us, and it will be secured by real estate. And so what hard money does is it will lend you usually around 75% of the after repair value of a property, of the ARV, after repair value of a property. So what does that mean? So if I have this $50,000 house that I've found, and let's say it needs about $20,000 worth of work to get it into a rentable or sellable standard. So a hard money lender will go out, have an appraisal done. They'll have an as-is appraisal done, which means that they will try to see what it's worth in its current condition, and then they will have to have a ARV appraisal done, after repair value, or the appraiser will tell them what the after repair value, based on what you plan on doing on this property, replacing the tile, replacing all the sheetrock, replacing the roof, fixing the foundation, all of these particular things. Then the after repair value of this particular property will be $100,000 in this example. So I have a $50,000 house. I have an ARV of $100,000, and so the hard money lender will lend you up to typically 70 or 75% of the ARV, right? So in this particular example, they would lend you up to $70,000 or $75,000 in this particular example. So you would take that. I'm gonna say it's $75,000. You would take that $75,000, right? You would pay for the house, for taking away $50,000, and then that would leave you with $20,000 to $25,000 to do the renovations. So you would take that time to do the renovation. Typically, most hard money lenders give you 6 months of interest-only payments during that period of time. So you pay for the house with the 50. You have 20 to 25 left over after fees to renovate the house. And then once you complete the renovation of the house, it is upon you. If you plan to flip the house, then you hope you can do all of that in that 6-month period, right? If you plan to rent the house, then what you would do is typically rent the house out while you're still under the hard money, and then after that, you would refinance it into what we call a regular rate and term purchase money loan with a normal bank, with a large bank or community bank, right, at a much better interest rate. Now, sounds easy, right? Not necessarily. It doesn't always work out exactly like that. Sometimes you have to still add your own money, because sometimes when you get into a property, you don't know what's wrong until you start tearing things up. And so that 20 to 25 may float to 30 because you had to replace the air conditioning unit and you didn't think you had to. There's also the cost of hard money. A friend of mine says, there's a saying that says, with hard money, it's hard to make money. That's why it's called hard money, because the interest rates on hard money are typically anywhere from 12 to 14%, right? 12 to 14% interest only is nothing to sneeze at. Why is it 12 to 14%? Because it is a very risky loan, right? It is a risky loan. Hard money is asset-based lending, right? So some people say, well, I don't have the greatest credit. I can't do a regular purchase money loan. Will hard money lender lend to me? Typically, they may. If you're going to flip the property, especially if you're going to do a rate and term refi, most likely they wouldn't, because your credit would not be good enough to do the refinance. But if you're just flipping, they may. What they're really looking at, they're not really looking at you. They're really looking at the asset, the house. Can I, if Kevin defaults on this loan, can I sell this property, or can I complete it and then rent it out? That's what they're looking at. So it's based on the asset more so than you. Now, do some hard money lenders have requirements that you must have experience doing this? Yes, and so that's where they kind of look at you. But for the most part, true hard money lending is asset-based lending. They're looking at the asset more so than anything. So going back to our example, What typically happens, you identify a hard money lender. And again, you can contact me. I have a list of hard money lenders, especially here in the Houston area, but there are nationwide hard money lenders. You would fill out an application. They would want some information about you. Some of them will pull credit. Some won't. It depends. True hard money lenders typically don't, but then there are some that want to be involved in the rate and term refinance. You would fill out an application. Hopefully you already have a deal in process. In other words, a house that you've identified or a property that you've identified. You would send them that information. Typically you pay an application fee, and that application fee includes the cost of that appraisal. And typically you want to be under contract when you're doing this so that you have control of the property. You don't want to be appraising a property that you don't have control over. And once you do that, right, then they will send out, they will also ask you for a construction budget and what you plan to do on the property. They'll send all that to the appraiser. The appraiser goes out and says, yes, it looks like this house is worth $100. Kevin's going to do about $20,000 worth of repairs. And they'll come back and say, okay, great. You're approved. We can fund this deal. The way you submit that deal to a particular real estate broker or agent, or if you're dealing directly with the owner, is a cash deal, because again, you're getting cash from them. You're getting a loan, but it essentially acts as a cash transaction. And so with that particular transaction, they typically will charge you points. So when I said that the interest rates are 12 to 14% for 6 months at an interest only, typically most hard money lenders are going to charge you anywhere from 2 to 5 points. For those of you that don't know, point is 1% of the loan amount. So they're going to charge you anywhere from 2 to 5% up front, right? Up front. So if your loan amount is $70,000, they're going to charge you anywhere from 2 to 5% of $70,000. All right. So that's typically the money that will possibly come out of your pocket. Now, some people see these advertisements out there that say, hey, you can use hard money to purchase a house without having any money out of your pocket. That is true. If you find a house that's worth $300,000 and you're able to get it for $50,000, then typically those points that I'm talking about can be rolled into the loan amount, because there's so much of a spread as far as equity is concerned that the lender is so protected that you don't necessarily have to have what they call skin in the game. But if the margin's a little thinner, like our example, most likely the lender's going to want you to pay the points outside of the loan amount, so that that you have a little bit of skin in the game. So with that particular example, again, hard money typically is 12 to 14%. 2 to 5% in upfront cost plus the cost of your appraisal. It's relatively easy to do. It typically does not take a very long time to get approved for hard money. Sometimes I've seen deals done as quick as a week. Typically, I would say you're allotted about 2 weeks to do it. You have your contractor. Hopefully you have a really good contractor. There are some hard money lenders that require you to use their contractors or people on their particular list, because they trust their work and they know that they will do it. And then ultimately, once the work is done, it is up to you. How do you want to reposition? So let me stop here and say that I don't care whether you use your own money, hard money, or regular loan. You start all real estate investments thinking about your exit strategy, right? How am I going to exit this particular transaction? How am I going to exit this particular transaction? So really, you really want, and I would say you have variations of that. So I would prefer to exit by flipping this particular property and selling it. But if I don't flip it, are the rents enough so that I could cover my note and do a rate and term refinance? So you want to kind of go down a decision tree, but you really want to know that up front, because your renovation standard for a rental might be different, or would be different, or should be different than your renovation standard for someone to flip a house that someone's going to live in, right? So that all has to do with your budget. And again, we're going to do multiple podcasts on real estate investment, house flipping, things of that nature. I'm going to have investors, people that I know that are doing this on a daily basis, to kind of give you the ins and outs of some of the decisions that I'm talking about. But I want to give you a primer on hard money, because one of the questions I've been getting since I've been doing the podcast is, when are you going to talk about how to get into real estate investing? And hard money can be a really good way to do that. So you've purchased your property. You've done your renovations. I feel like this is an HGTV special. All in 30 minutes. You've done all this stuff in 30 minutes, and it works so well. People think those flip or flop houses and all those particular shows, everything happens just like that. Oh, and there's always a cliffhanger like, oh my God, the material was more than I thought, or oh my God, it had termites. And that stuff does happen. So long story short, this is not something I would necessarily do without any expertise. I would hire a coach or pay someone to kind of walk me through this particular process, even if it's going to cost you money. There's a saying in my wife's family that says, bought wit is better than taught wit. When you pay to learn a lesson, you learn it way better than when I'm just teaching you on a podcast, right? So I would rather you have wit with someone that has done this before. But assuming that things go well, and that's a big assumption, assuming that things go well, hard money is a very useful tool to be able to get started in real estate investment. I typically say, and this is me, start with a real small deal. You know, if you can, depending on where you live in the United States, if you can find an area that's decent where you can get houses under $100,000 that may have an ARV of 150 or 125. Start with something that's not going to hurt you if, for instance, you can't sell it in 6 months. Some people might ask, well, what happens if you get to that end of that 6 months and I haven't been able to sell or I haven't finished? Most hard money lenders have a provision for you to extend the loan. Remember, you're paying interest only, so they're paying their investors. They may be, the hard money company might be paying their investors 8%, charging you 12%, and then the hard money company is making that 4% yield. And so they typically will charge you a fee to extend. There are some hard money lenders that do 8 and 12 month loans at different rates. So there's a little bit of variation on hard money loans. But with that being said, it's a really good way for people that are really good at finding deals to get started, right? I've had many clients that I've shown property to and sold property to use hard money, and then they come back out with a rate and term refinance or they come out and flip. Now, I will say this, and we'll talk about this in more detail in future podcasts. Flipping is not a way to build wealth. It's a way to generate cash. Flipping is not a way to build wealth. It's a way to build cash. And nothing wrong with building cash. But long-term wealth in real estate comes through ownership. Ownership, long-term ownership, right? So flipping is fun. Flipping, you know, is probably about 5 or 6 shows out there that are flipping-based shows. Property Brothers, Flip or Flop, all these different shows, which are great shows. They're great. Again, the flipping to build the cash so that you have now way more cash to be able to do more deals. But eventually you want to get to a point where you are buying things for long-term holds, because that's truly how you build wealth, both from the cash flow of that property and also from the accumulation of equity. So with that being said, I'm going to end on this hard money subject just by saying that it can be hard to make money on hard money, but it is truly possible. Don't be scared. Just do it with someone and do it with an experienced hard money lender. So with that being said, I want to thank you again for listening to the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. We are moving slowly but surely. This particular episode is the first episode we have actually live video, so you guys are going to be able to see the fact that I really need a haircut. I really do need a haircut, but I did shave. But I really do need a haircut. Y'all can tell me, for those that are watching the video, whether I need to put some coloring in my hair because I got this gray going on. So that's a little shout out to those that actually watched the video. And notice, by the way, the folks that with the video, I did kind of look around until I really got used to looking in the camera. Now I like it. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. If you have a question about anything that we've talked about on the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles, a real estate question or a life question, no matter what, email me at kevin@kevinriles.com. Again, that's kevin@kevinriles.com. I'll get it. I'll make sure that I respond to you via email, but also I want to kind of collect these answers so that I could help everyone else. So again, kevin@kevinriles.com.